Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Tuesday Training. I hope you're having a fantastic week. As always,
we are live from Austin, Texas, right here at Insurance Syndicate headquarters, and man, we have a great show for you.
good morning. What is up? It's Tuesday. What happens on Tuesday? Oh, yeah, we have this show on Tuesday. I hope you guys are doing well. Tim Tilson, what's up, man? It's good to see you out there. I'm glad you're watching. Thank you for tuning in. And by the way, I miss you, buddy. Miss seeing you at events. You were always a bright spot. Anytime I had my table next to yours and got to chop it up with you, it was always a good time. Hope you're doing well out there, partner. But man, I hope you guys, everybody is doing well on this wonderful Tuesday in February. I've got just some basic news and some updates that I want to go over with you guys today. There's been a fair amount of news in the Medicare space that has kind of popped up over the last week. Nothing that is definitely urgent, but some interesting stuff that has popped up. For example, Cigna's laying off 2,000 people. So we're going to touch on that. Oh, Molina is exiting the market. Yeah, we're going to touch on that too. And then I just have some general Q&A stuff that I'm going to go over. So I saw some questions in some of the different Medicare-related Facebook groups that I'm going to hit on as well and do some answers right here. And as I'm going through that, if you guys have any questions, questions about Medicare, questions on, I guess, anything related to Medicare, or the insurance space as I know it, feel free to drop them in the chat and I'll answer those live as well. As always, this show is brought to you by DFY CRM, my CRM of choice. They are doing some fantastic stuff over there. Eric won't let me spill the beans, though. I mean, I've looked at some of the updates that he is about to roll out that are going to simplify your entire experience, whether you are just an independent agent or an agent recruiter. And maybe if you're one of those people that likes cross-marketing, I'll just maybe throw some of those hints out there. It's about the most I can say right now. But look forward to them. If you're on the DFY platform, you've got, I promise you, man, some serious updates coming out. And if you are an agent out there still looking for a CRM, I would encourage you to at least check this one out. I love it to death. So anyway, with that said, I want to dive into a little bit of news for you guys that is interesting. It's related to our space, and some of it is certainly very, very interesting. Let me get my screen share popping here for you today. And as I said, I'm just going to go through a little bit of news today. I've got some Q&A from some questions that I pulled from some of the different Medicare Facebook groups. And if you guys have any Medicare-related questions or anything at all, feel free to drop them in the chat, and I'll address those as well as I go along. But first and foremost, this is from U.S. News, but it says an outdated Medicare rule keeps seniors in the hospital longer than necessary. You guys, if you're out there in the Medicare space, you already know about this rule. It's the 3-day rule, right? That says that, hey, if we're going to cover your rehab in a skilled nursing facility after, say, a major surgery or something, you're required to spend at least 3 days in the hospital. Now they're coming back and they're saying that that rule is outdated because as advances in medicine have happened, hospital stays don't need to be 3 days anymore. Like, they can get what they need out of them faster and get them into skilled nursing where they can get their rehab going a lot quicker than 3 days. And since they're required to do 3 days, all that means it's doing is it's inflating hospital costs and then therefore inflating insurance costs, Medicare costs, et cetera, et cetera. Basically, I'm just going to go through some of the details on there. But it was established back in 1965 when Medicare came out. The 3-day rule was intended to justify the expense of sending a patient to a skilled nursing facility. This is super important in a lot of ways. This is a topic personally that I believe a lot of Medicare agents aren't as savvy on as they probably should be. And the reason I bring that up is because understanding how this works, why it works, some of the data around it, and the need for it for seniors in the Medicare space is the difference between you having the ability to sell secondary products in a lot of ways. Just to kind of mention that. One being hospital indemnity, right? If we know someone has to be in the hospital for at least 3 days before they can get transferred to skilled nursing, well, that's 3 days of co-payments on their Medicare Advantage plan that a hospital indemnity plan could take care of for them. And then also, depending on how many of their skilled nursing days they might have already evaporated, that Medicare provides them. As we know, Medicare provides them 20 for free. The next 80 all have a copayment that continues to go up every year. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it's $214 this year, if I remember correctly. I'm just kind of going off my vague memory, but it's somewhere in that ballpark. It's a little over $200. So there are products such as hospital indemnity plans, such as home health care plans that can help address these elevated costs when they do pop up. And one of the common misconceptions I see for seniors when you talk to them about skilled nursing is they think of it as long-term care. It looks a lot like long-term care, but in the terms of how Medicare covers that, we know it's not long-term care, right? It's for rehab purposes. You spend 3 days in the hospital, you have a massive back surgery, knee replacement, hip replacement, something like that, where you can't quite get out of bed on your own yet. You can't transfer yourself from the bed to the toilet or to the shower, right? Or to a chair or to your walker or whatever, or just on your own 2 feet. They put you in that skilled nursing facility to rehab you and teach you how to walk on that knee again, teach you how to walk on that new hip, whatever it might be. So the average Medicare beneficiary uses the average Medicare beneficiary from the data I've seen uses 37 skilled nursing days. Medicare only gives you 20, which means that there is definitely a need in the marketplace for them to have some extra coverage to help cover that extended time. Will all senior citizens or Medicare beneficiaries, I don't even like calling them senior citizens, will all Medicare beneficiaries spend time in skilled nursing? No, right? But there are some that will spend exorbitant time. My mom, for one, had a knee replacement that went bad, and she almost exhausted her entire 100 days in skilled nursing. Thankfully for her, she had a nice Medicare supplement plan that covered that for her. She didn't have to deal with the copayment, and we never went over the 100 days. Anyway, I digress a little bit. But basically, this rule, right, the 3-day rule, requires patients to spend at least 3 straight days in a hospital before Medicare will cover their rehab in a nursing facility. But as they're arguing here, the rule has not kept up with the times. Modern medicine has dramatically shortened hospital stays, which means some seniors must be kept longer than really necessary before they can get moved into skilled nursing for it to be covered by Medicare. So again, they're arguing that, hey, this policy of the 3-day rule is amplifying hospital costs. It's amplifying cost to Medicare, et cetera. And they give some data right here. It says in 1 month alone, Medicare paid for between, it's interesting margin that they have. I don't know why this margin is so large, but it says in 1 month alone, I guess that's an average over all the months. In 1 month alone, Medicare paid for 2,000, somewhere between 2,000 and 64 days to 5,617 additional days of hospital care that, according to them, were not needed. So basically, those people are sitting in the hospital just riding out that 3rd day or that 2nd and 3rd day when technically they could already be moved. Like whatever work has already been needed to be done to them to prep them and get them ready for rehab and skilled nursing is already completed. And now they're just sitting there being looked at the whole time and picking up bills. So it says when the policy was created, typical hospital stays were close to 2 weeks, which is wild. And requiring 3 days may have helped ensure appropriate use of post-acute care. But today, it says hospital stays are far shorter, and hospitals can quickly assess patients' need for skilled nursing care. In that context, it has been difficult to justify a rigid 3-day threshold. Skilled nursing facilities are not the same as long-term care nursing houses. I just said that. They are meant to provide short-term care and rehab for people who have the ability to return to independent living. And it goes on to say that health experts have suspected that the 3-day rule had become outmodeled, and the COVID-19 pandemic provided a perfect natural experience to test this notion. The rule was suspended, if you remember. The rule was suspended during the pandemic. The 3-day rule was suspended between March 2020 and May 23 as part of the federal government's response to the pandemic. That gave researchers the opportunity to compare hospital stays. Researchers analyzed more than 600,000 hospital stays in 23 involving traditional Medicare patients. Results showed that as soon as the 3-day rule was reinstated, the proportion of hospital stays lasting at least 3 days increased by more than 1%. The increase was even greater, more than 5% among patients who later went into nursing home rehab. We found that the rule does not reduce skilled nursing care, but instead led to longer hospital stays to meet that requirement for coverage. Fairly simple. So there's a little bit more into it, not much more. I mean, that's basically the crux of the article and the argument. I will throw that in the group for you guys, but that definitely makes sense that would be a rule that is up for being updated and brought up to modern times, right? To reduce some of those costs. Next up, we got Cigna. If you work for Cigna, you're on the chopping block, apparently. Cigna is going to cut 2,000 positions this month. Now, this is the only article I've been able to find on this, which is in Modern Healthcare, which is it's got a paywall behind it. I'm subscribed to it. But what I really mean to say is that they don't tell you much about what they're doing. They haven't disclosed who they're canning. Because if you're familiar with Cigna, they have several areas that they cover business, right? Group, individual, Medicare, etc. They sold all of their Medicare block, all of it, to Blue Cross, or the company that owns Blue Cross, Healthcare Service Corp, last year. I would guess that most of these positions are probably related to all the people that were left behind in that Medicare sale, right? They sold the entire Medicare block over to HCSC, and I would assume most of these 2,000 employees that they are axing are probably employees that were left over in the Medicare space that they don't need anymore. But that's all it says, is that they're cutting 2,000 positions. Reductions make up less than 3% of their global workforce, and they've offered some voluntary retirement to an undisclosed number of employees. And that's pretty much it, right? It goes on to say that as we drive greater efficiency across our business, we have made the difficult decision to reduce roles in our workforce. The decision was made with deliberate care and focus, and we are providing a package that includes a variety of transition services. And this picks up right off of, says here, Cigna last week agreed to a settlement with the FTC, the Federal Trade Commission, mandating several changes to its pharmacy benefit manager, Express Scripts. What are they talking about there? Well, they are talking about this right here. Cigna settles the FTC insulin case and commits to overhauling drug pricing. If you're not familiar with this, Cigna basically, like most insurance companies, it seems like these days, got their hand caught in the cookie jar, taking rebates because them, like few of the other carriers, also own the PBM that they're working through, right? So Cigna owns Express Scripts. And that's the PBM that is kind of the middleman that handles their drug distribution. So basically right here, it says that Cigna Corp's Express Scripts has settled the U.S. Federal Trade Commission's claims that its insulin pricing violates antitrust and consumer protection laws, and agreed to changes aimed at lowering costs for patients, insurers, and small pharmacies. The Trump administration has taken aim at high drug costs, secured its agreements with pharmaceutical companies to slash prices. The settlement fits with that goal and allows the FTC to pare down a case brought by the former Biden administrations against Cigna Express Scripts. It goes on to say that the 10-year agreement restricts Express Scripts' ability to engage in practices critics say contribute to high cost, like pocketing the rebate payments from drug makers based on the list price of drugs. And this has been one of the biggest issues. I should probably work to get Norma Johnson back on the show to talk about this more. She is easily one of the foremost experts in understanding the whole hierarchy or structure of pharmaceutical distribution, right? From the drug manufacturers through the PBMs, through the different pharmacies, all the way down to the client. But this is one of the big issues where these PBMs are keeping the rebates that the drug manufacturer provides. They're keeping it to themselves, and they're not passing any of that savings through to consumer, right? So they're keeping a fat rebate, and they're still charging full price or more as it cruises down the line. So again, this 10-year agreement restricts Express Scripts' ability to engage in practices that critics say contribute to high costs, like pocketing rebate payments from drug makers based on the list price of drugs. The FTC estimates the agreement could save patients as much as $7 billion over a decade. And while Express Scripts last year announced a shift away from rebates, the settlement legally binds the company and puts the company under a 3-year monitorship of its compliance. Boom. I'll get that in the group. You guys can check that one out some more. But that is yet another carrier. And just recently, I don't have this in front of me, but just recently, Aetna and CVS were sitting in Congress getting grilled by Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez about their vertical integration, right? Aetna is the insurance company that's owned by CVS. CVS is a PBM. CVS owns the pharmacies. CVS pretty much owns everything. I think they even own some of the drug manufacturing. And she didn't like that too much. So this is another example of a similar thing where there's some vertical integration going on in there, and their upper channel, their PBMs, are the ones that are making the boatloads of dollars, and they're not passing that down through. So I'll get that in the group. Let's move on a little bit because I want to get through some of this Q&A that I've got lined up for you guys as well. What does Molina's Medicare Advantage exit say about the market? Well, if you haven't already heard, Molina is exiting. And for most of us, we probably don't really give a shit. It's Molina. Unless you're in certain marketplaces where DSNP is super heavy and they've got the Medicaid contract, like in Texas, for example. They're a pretty strong player in the DSNP space in Texas, among other states. This exit is definitely going to make a difference for some of us. But I personally really appreciate the title of the article. What does it actually say about our marketplace right now when you have a carrier like Molina that is exiting the Medicare Advantage space? And it says here that Molina's healthcare decision to exit the Medicare Advantage market is the latest sign that the glory days have come to an end. The health insurance company will not sell standard. Okay. So I should have read more of this article before I pulled it up. But this is actually, it's not as bad as it may have sounded. The health insurance company will not sell standard individual Medicare Advantage with prescription drug coverage in 2027 and focus instead on dual eligible. So again, this is one of those, and I apologize because I'm the one that got sniped by it too, but this is one of the gotchas that media is really good at by just throwing out headlines that are blank so that you click on it and read it. But truthfully, Molina has been out of the MAPD space for a minute already. And they've been focusing on dual special needs for a little while. And they've certainly reduced their footprint overall. But I was surprised to see this as a possibility that they were getting out of the business altogether. But no, they are just going to continue to lean into their strength, which is in the DSNP space. So in certain markets, you will definitely want Molina because they are going to be the one major or one of two major carriers that have the actual Medicaid aligned contract in that region, which basically means for any of your full dual eligible clients or beneficiaries, they will have the ability to move into an FIDE, fully integrated plan, or an HIDE, hybrid integrated plan. And they obviously get that SEP once a month. What I love about that, and if you are an agent out there, I'll just say it this way. If you are an agent out there that has a heavy book of DSNPs, or if you're in a market that has maybe one primary carrier that offers FIDE and HIDE plans, FIDE and HIDE. You have a huge opportunity to get ahead of the ball game, so to speak. Just to make sure everybody's up to speed for some of the new watchers here, used to be that if you were eligible for any level of Medicaid, you had a quarterly SEP to change from one DSNP to the next. And through that, there were a lot of what they call DSNP lookalike plans that were created. And there's still certainly a lot of them still out there, although they're trying to thin them out, where they're not aligned with the carrier that carries the Medicaid contract or Medicaid benefits in that marketplace. And just to help simplify that, in every state or certain regions, like Texas, I think has 4 regions, if I remember correctly, that in those different regions, or in some areas just the state, a certain insurance company is aligned with Medicaid in that area to provide the proper Medicaid benefits, right? And to distribute those benefits on the Medicaid model, so to speak. I think that's probably the best way to put it. So in those states or in those regions, the DSNP products that carrier has are usually, not always, they're going to be the fully integrated plan because they're integrated with that Medicaid contract that carrier has. Other carriers that are basically doing DSNP lookalike type products are not aligned with Medicaid in that area. So if you use a tool like Sunfire, for example, and I think Connexure probably has this as well, in any given zip code or county or region, you can separate out and look at, hey, which plans do I have in my area that are FIDE, fully integrated dual eligible plans, or HIDE, hybrid integrated dual eligible plans, because those plans are the ones that are working with the carrier that has the true Medicaid alignment in that region or in that state, right? Now, if you have a client that is full dual, they're not partial dual, right? They're not just on extra help or LIS. They are full Medicaid, full dual beneficiaries. They can move into a FIDE, FIDE, or HIDE, HIDE plan any month of the year. They have a monthly SEP. And that may sound crazy, but here's what that gives you as the agent the opportunity to do. In most areas, not all, but in most areas, there's not going to be a monster selection of FIDE and HIDE plans. There's going to be a couple. In some areas, there's probably only one. I know in some areas, like I was looking at with an agent that I work with in West Virginia, there's none in some of his markets. Tough spot to be in. But in most areas, you should at least find one FIDE or HIDE plan. Generally speaking, I would say that's probably one of the better performing plans in that area. Not always. It's not a perfect rule. Nothing's absolute. But in general speaking, in a lot of areas where you have access to a FIDE or HIDE plan, you should be working, in my opinion, aggressively to get your clients moved into those FIDE and HIDE plans that qualify for them. Why? It's probably the better plan for them since it's coordinated directly with Medicaid. Truly, like it's truly integrated with Medicaid. It's not a lookalike plan with, hey, these benefits look cool on paper, but they don't really hold water kind of thing. They're probably going to end up there eventually anyway. Once they're in that FIDE or HIDE plan, unless there's another FIDE or HIDE plan, they can't move until AEP the next year. So unless you're in a market that has multiple FIDE or HIDE plans, getting that client into that one plan that you have in the area truly locks them in for the rest of the year. No chargebacks. And at some point, because they're working towards this, there's going to be a limited number of DSNP plans. The CMS and our federal government is tired of all the churn that happens in the DSNP market. That's why they got rid of the quarterly SEPs, right? And they went to this and they created, hey, no, ultimately they want everybody to be in those integrated plans, at least the ones that are full dual, right? Your partial duals, they're fine on some of the lookalike plans, whatever. But for your full duals, they want them in the FIDE and HIDE. So Molina kind of gets that. That's their strength, and they're leaning into it. So they're just reinforcing here in this article This is kind of a nothing burger, to be honest with you, because they're just reinforcing their stance from before, that they're getting out of the MAPD space and they're leaning in to the DSNP space more and more. Fairly simple. Next up to bat, one more, got a couple more, and then we'll jump into some Q&A here. This is also from Modern Healthcare. What do doctors want from the Medicare payment system? Well, just to remind you guys, every year, Medicare drops a final rule, a proposed final rule, and then a final rule on the Medicare physician fee schedule, what they are reimbursing doctors from original Medicare, right? And then certainly you have Medicare Advantage payment structures as well. But even within original Medicare, there's the MIPS system, which is the merit-based incentive payment system, right? Et cetera. So you have different ways that some of these doctors can make their money. And doctors are now telling us, I'm not going to go through this whole article, but basically, number one, they're telling us that the original Medicare physician fee schedule is not keeping up with the times, the rate of inflation and the cost of healthcare that these guys need. And number two, they're also saying that, hey, we want more participation and more opportunities in the alternative payment models like MIPS or value-based reimbursement, meaning that if the health outcome, if we can prove that the health outcome is improved, right? If we can prove that we've improved their health outcome, we want more money versus just treating people and getting the regular flat rate for whatever it is. So doctors are really starting to step up and talk about these value-based care incentives, such as bonuses and payment boosts for doctors who participate in them. You do not have to participate in them. But for the doctors that do, and they can prove that the health outcome for the client or the beneficiary has improved or been resolved, they get more money. So good doctors really want to get in on it. And this has been around for a while. This isn't new by any means. These alternative payment models started, I think, 97 was when the very first door got open. If I remember correctly, I'd have to go back and look at that presentation that I did. But as I remember, it was right in 97 where they very first introduced some of the alternative payment models under the ACA Act, the original Affordable Care Act. And I could be a little bit off on that, but I don't believe so. So I like that doctors are really getting involved, and they're saying, hey, we want more participation in this value-based care incentive, because I believe personally that value-based care is the wave of the future, at least within Medicare, if not medicine in general. I've talked about this numerous times. So I'm happy to see that more and more doctors are asking for it. They're like, yes, let's get involved in that value-based care payment model. If I can help someone, if I can help cure someone versus just slinging some drugs to them, I can make more money, right? Because the whole idea is if I can incentivize the doctor by rewarding him based on value and not volume, right? Right now, a lot of doctors are mostly paid on volume. The more patients they see, the more money they make. And that's why when you go to the doctor, you spend 30 minutes with the nurse and 3 minutes with the doctor, because he doesn't have time to sit there and chit chat with you, get to know you, talk to you, and really, really look into you. Like, he's there for one reason, like, oh, they said this, cool, here, give him a prescription of that, stick him with that, reschedule him for 2 weeks later, whatever it might be, right? It's a quick thing. But if now we can change that, and that's the whole purpose of the value-based payment system and the whole value-based care model, is that, again, if we can incentivize doctors based on value, right? And when I'm saying value, I mean that the care is proven to generate a more positive health outcome. That's what they're talking about when they say value-based, not cheap. That's not what they mean when they say value-based healthcare. They're not saying cheap healthcare. They're saying, hey, healthcare that can prove in an evidence-based way that your health has improved by participating in that system. When doctors participate in that system and they can prove in an evidence-based way that they have improved your health outcome, they get paid more money through alternative payment systems. So that is, I believe, is the way of the future. So I'm happy to see doctors speaking up and asking for more. Finally, one last thing, and then we'll jump into a few Q&A questions that I've got. If you have questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. This is a big report. I haven't gone through the whole thing yet, a full brief. I'm kind of interested in it, though, that Families USA has put together. They're basically a advocacy group for healthcare and consumers in healthcare. They have put protect Medicare's future, hold Medicare Advantage insurance companies accountable for rising healthcare costs. And they put together this 22-page brief. I just landed on it today. As a matter of fact, I think this came out today. So I haven't had a chance to read this yet, but I am going to get it in the group. You guys can check it out, and then we can tackle it next Tuesday. I will go over it in detail and maybe give you my opinion on what it says, how accurate some of this stuff is. But they put together this 22-page brief that goes over Medicare Advantage. And this is an argument that's been out there for a while. I've mentioned it. I don't have the right answers. I don't have the right numbers. I am only going by what the experts say. And I've seen arguments from both sides of the fence that Medicare Advantage costs more than original Medicare. Kaiser Family Foundation will tell you that it's 22% more. I know KFF is a bit biased in the political sphere, but I haven't seen anybody promote anything that says that's not accurate. If you talk to CMS, they'll tell you it's not that much. It's maybe, a couple of points more or something. Like, everybody's got a different point of view on it. I haven't ever seen anybody come to a full consensus on yes or no. I've seen really smart actuaries and people on the Medicare Advantage side say, no, we're actually saving money, and here's proof that we're reducing cost to consumers and taxpayers. And then I've seen people on the other side of the fence say, absolutely not. Look at all this evidence. It's 22% more. So I'm of the opinion it probably does cost more, especially when you look at the problems with upcoding, different fraud that's out there. But it's hard to say, especially right now with all of the fraud that we see in Medicare in general. Like, I mean, just in the past few months, I've shown you 2 examples of people that are bilking Medicare, individual people, not like giant organizations, individual doctors working with durable medical equipment or whatever it is, or not even doctors, just people, just criminals that have bilked Medicare for over the several $1 billion. That Russian guy that just got picked up here in Austin, what was that? That was over $3 billion. And then we have the couple out in Scottsdale was $1.2 billion. So right there, we're pushing about $5 billion. That's just 2 examples. So, I mean, when you think about all that, cutting through that, it's got to be difficult to really deal with figuring out which one of these programs is actually more expensive, original Medicare or Medicare Advantage. Considering the amount of fraud that's out there, you have to cut through that and get that off the plate before you can really truly answer that question. But these guys are trying to go through it with their executive summary and the brief. Like I said, I will share that in the group. You guys can check it out. All right. So like I said, I had pulled up a few questions from some Facebook groups. General Medicare questions stuff. There's about 3 of them here that I want to go through that'll definitely probably carry us through the rest of the hour. First one up, Plan N excess charges. Have you had an issue with clients on Plan N being billed excess charges? And if so, who charges them? Great question. And if any of you guys follow me out there at all, you know that I'm a big advocate for Plan N. I have been selling the shit out of Plan N ever since it came onto the scene in 2010, right? When they, just to take some of you back to a little bit of history, we used to not have Plan N. We used to only have A, B, C, D, E, F, and G for the longest time. And then in 2005, they updated some plans, and that was when they started getting rid of H, I, and J and some of that stuff. And then in 2010, they had a new modernization act that's eliminated some more plans and added in plans M and N, as I remember. I think L and K were already there, but they added M and N. M's trash. I don't even know why they created it. Nobody even sells it. A couple of carriers put it out, and then as soon as we saw the pricing for it, you're like, why would anybody bother buying this? But N, on the other hand, is an outstanding plan, and it's one that I sell most of my clients. It's very rare that I will sell someone anything other than Plan N. I usually don't even bother asking them which plan they want. I just tell them which plan they deserve. That's my style. But if you're familiar with Medicare supplement plans, you know that Plan N does not cover excess charges. That is something that the client would have to cover. What are excess charges? Well, As you may have heard me say, 99% of doctors nationwide, providers, doctors, etc., all accept original Medicare, which means for any of your clients that have that red, white, and blue card, they can go visit those doctors. 99% of doctors all accept original Medicare. Now, of those 99 doctors, 97% of them accept Medicare's fee for service schedule exactly as it's written, right? Medicare is a public fee for service program. It means that for any given service that they cover that is considered medically necessary, from a stitched finger to a hip replacement and everything in between, they have a fee for what they feel is usual and customary. If a doctor performs that service, this is what the reimbursement rate is, right? Now, doctors are not required to accept that fee for service schedule. They can accept Medicare without accepting that schedule. So if you're a Medicare beneficiary, you can still go see a doctor that accepts Medicare, but he doesn't accept the fee for service schedule, also known in the industry as assignment. He doesn't accept Medicare's assigned fees for those services. So Medicare says, hey, if you're one of those doctors that you want to accept Medicare patients, but you don't want to be beholden to our fee-for-service schedule, we will allow you to charge no more than 15% in excess of our fee-for-service schedule. So arbitrarily, if there's a service on that schedule, let's say that's $1,000, and you go visit a doctor that accepts assignment and Medicare reimburses the whole $1,000, you're good. If you go to another doctor that doesn't, he accepts Medicare, but he doesn't accept the fee for service schedule, he doesn't accept assignment, then on that $1,000 service, as an example, and I'm just using an arbitrary number, he can charge you up to 15% more, which would be $150 in that scenario. The beneficiary would be the responsible for paying that $150 if they're on a Plan N, because Plan N does not cover excess charges. Plan F covers excess charges. Plan G covers excess charges. Plan C, I think those are the only two, aren't they? I have to go back and look at the chart. I think those are the only two that anybody's selling right now, right? And a lot of people will sell Plan G over Plan N because of that benefit, because it covers excess charges and Plan N doesn't, right? But here's the kicker. Oh, and real quick, one of the questions, if so, who charges? The doctor charges them. The doctor is the one charging that extra 15%, or provider, whatever it might. Maybe it's a rehab clinic that they're going to. And that rehab clinic says, hey, we want to charge an extra 15%. And they have the right to do it. They don't have to accept Medicare assignment. They can charge an extra 15%. Now, I don't have the full list of states where it's illegal to charge excess charges, because that's another thing. There are numerous states. I think Ohio is one of them as an example. But there are numerous states in the union that say, hey, no, we know Medicare built that in for y'all, but we say, no, you can't charge excess charges if you're a doctor. So there are some states it's a non-issue altogether, that you'll never face excess charges because the doctor is not allowed to charge them. And there's other states where it could pop up. But again, let's go back and do some math. 99% of doctors or providers all accept Medicare. 97% of those doctors, and this, from the last time I checked it up, this is from KFF, Kaiser Family Foundation, and they're pretty good at their numbers. They say that 97% of all of those Medicare accepting providers all accept assignment. And generally speaking, the group of doctors that don't are in the behavioral health category. Psychiatrists, psychologists, neuroscientists, etc., which isn't really unusual, because the 1% of doctors that don't even accept Medicare, most of them are in the behavioral health category. And if you know anything about psychologists, psychiatrists, etc., most of them don't even accept insurance at all. It's all cash pay arrangement. Or they accept very limited insurance. And certainly Medicare is not one of the things they're open to accept. However, because of recent legislation that has increased the payment for mental health and therapeutic services on outpatient levels, some of those doctors are now starting to accept Medicare, or they're starting to accept assignment. So that 99 and 97% has even shrunk, albeit very minutely, has shrunk. So just from a mathematical perspective, the odds that any of your clients are ever going to see excess charges, it's not zero, but it's really small. I don't know how many total apps I have on the books with Plan In, but it's the majority of all the business I've written since 2010. So it's going to be several hundred apps. Not a single one. Now, they might have been charge excess charges, but not a single one has ever come to me and said, hey, Tony, what's this excess charge that I have? I've never had to deal with it. It's never been an issue. So I'm of the opinion that if you're an agent, you should 100% be selling Plan In. You should definitely educate your folks on it. Say, hey, there's this thing called excess charges you could be liable for. The mathematical probability that you'll ever find a doctor that charges you excess charges is incredibly minute. But it could happen. I mean, if they have a $100,000 heart surgery or something and they go to a doctor that charges excess, he could charge them an extra $15,000. And that for some people, that could be rough. Frank Costello had a question in the chat. Says, when and which MedSups had RX coverage? Those were plans H as in Harry, I as in Island, and J as in Joseph. H, I, and J. And no, when I got into Medicare, I came in right when the drug plans were starting to pop. So they had already, or they were in the process, I should say, of removing those plans. It wasn't a hard stop. Like, they phased them out for a while. So at first for people that had HI and J that were getting drug benefits, they let it cover them for a while. And I don't remember this perfectly. But for everybody else, like, they started creating Part D plans for the very first time back then. Silver Script was pretty much the hot one, like everybody bought. There weren't that many. We went from like 5 drug plans to 65 drug plans, and now we're down to 12 or 10, depending on the state you're in. I remember them, but I never sold them. And basically, HI and J were just like, I guess, C, F, and G. I think H was like a Plan D, not Part D. Plan D, Medicare Supplement Plan D, which I used to sell a shit ton of. My favorite 2 plans to sell when I was in the field regularly, when I first started from 04 to 06, and even beyond that till about 09, was D and E. I sold those constantly until the Modernization Act wiped them out, or wiped out Plan E. Plan E was just a Plan D with preventative care. It was easy to sell to females because they like preventative care. Every year they had free preventative care on there, which was nice. But anyway, we're digressing a little bit. No, I never sold any HI and J myself. They were getting phased out. And by the time they pulled the drug benefits out of them, it didn't make much sense to sell them anyway. There were a few carriers that saw the opportunity where, hey, I can release a fresh HI and J plan with no drug benefits because the drug benefits have been pulled, and they're going to operate just like a D, G, and F plan would. And since my D, G, and F plan block is getting old and going up in rates, I don't have to bring out a whole new charter. I can just release these 3 plans on my old charter that everybody's already familiar with, and boom, get business. So there were some carriers that were capitalizing on HI and J when they pulled the drug benefits out of them, and were just basically selling them as another version of D, G, and F. So a lot of guys were selling Plan J without drug benefits in the early mid 2000s, just like another option for Plan F. And then I think it was in 2010, if I remember correctly, boom, they canceled those 3 plans 100%. And then now you cannot sell them at all. But again, I've never had issues with excess charges. I've sold several hundred Plan Ins. Who charges them? The doctor would charge them at time of service. Fairly simple. So educate your consumers, but understand, like, the mathematical probability that you'll ever have to deal with that is super, super slim. Next question I pulled from a group is, who's got the best FMO? I need to switch. I can appreciate it if you're not happy with your upline and you want to switch. I'm not arguing that here. The question is the worst question to ask. Who's got the best FMO? That's a terrible question to ask because every FMO is going to tell you that they're the best. And everybody who likes their FMO is going to tell you my FMO is the best. The problem is every insurance agent out there is unique, and every FMO out there is unique and uniquely positioned to address different unique agents. My agency is a great FMO for some agents, not for all of them. 100%. The NMO that I worked through as an agent and brokerage myself, they're phenomenal at what they do, but they're not built for all agents, right? There's a certain group of agents that can work with precision senior marketing where I came from as an NMO distributor myself for 15 years, 13 years, at least with them. Outstanding. Like we're still ranked as one of the best, period. Not just from total production level, but service, reviews, people love us, etc. Right? Like one of the biggest compliments I always got when I worked at Precision as a national marketer was that, damn, these dudes actually answer the phone when I call, which is one of the biggest complaints I've seen. But not every agent can work with PSM. Why? Because they can't drive you around from house to house and teach you how to sell. Most of the guys at PSM, and this is no offense to them, have never even sold a policy. There's a small handful of them that actually are agents and know what it's like to walk into a house or talk to a beneficiary over the phone and sell. But they don't have that skill set to take you and teach you true sales in the field. They can't go teach you how to run a seminar because they've never done it. Who can they work with that is a perfect fit for them? Agents that already know the business really well, and they just need a better contract, a better tool, a better widget to plug in, right? Alternatively, a group like mine would work great for a newer agent that needs a little more help. I'm actually going to help one of my agents today run a seminar. I'm going up into her neck of the woods, deliver some items, and teach her what I feel is the best way to run a seminar because I have that ability in my model. Now, if that agent weren't in the Austin area, I probably wouldn't have that ability. If this was an agent that I worked with in Alabama or California, that's going to be a little more difficult for me to just run up there and teach you how to run a seminar real quick, right? So everybody has their own advantages. So just asking this blanket question of, hey, who's got the best FMO? I need to switch is a terrible way to shop for an FMO. And I answer this question the same every time. You need to be shopping for who is the best FMO for me. And how do you answer that question best? You first have to look inside yourself and say, hey, what am I trying to accomplish, number one, in this insurance business that I'm in? Whatever product lane I pick, whether it's Medicare, life insurance, final expense, annuities, P&C, whatever it might be, the question is the same. What am I trying to accomplish in the lane of business that I chose? And two, what are the things that I can provide what are the things that I need to succeed, but I can't provide myself? And then how do I find an FMO, broker, upline, MGA, SGA, whatever acronym I want to attach to them, that can provide me those things at fair compensation? For example, do I need an FMO that can actually teach me how to sell because I've never sold insurance in my life? Or do I have that part covered? Or do I know how to sell? I know the products. I know how to sell. I don't have that issue. And I have work ethic. I know I know how to generate leads. I just need better contracts, better widgets, better tools, someone that can plug in resources for me to help me learn to grow my business, things like that. Or do I need someone to teach me to sell, someone to provide me leads? Because I don't know how to market for myself. I don't know how to generate leads other than maybe knocking on doors, which I'm not excited about, right? So I need someone that can either provide me leads or provide me with the resource and teach me how to manage that resource and generate leads through it. So there's a bunch of different types of FMOs out there that are in a lot of ways uniquely positioned to help different types of agent forces. But unless you have the ability and the honesty to look within yourself and define what are you trying to accomplish and what do you need to accomplish those goals that you cannot provide yourself, and then go find an FMO that can fill in those blanks for you. And I would also tell you that if you're truly being independent, like if you're an independent broker, right, you don't have to tie yourself to one FMO. There are some advantages to consolidating certain things, right? Like maybe there's an FMO that's really good at Medicare Advantage world. So maybe I'll consolidate all my Medicare Advantage contracts with that guy because I get some extra tools. Maybe I get some co-op. Maybe I get some extra niceties by doing that. But then over here, this guy's got a better selection of Medicare supplement products, or he's got a better selection of ancillary products that I can plug into my Medicare Advantage model. So maybe I'm finding 2 or 3 or 4 different FMOs that I can work with on different products where that is their strength that I can pull from to build my best value proposition. Pretty simple. So look inside yourself. Stop looking outward for that answer. And then got one more. This is kind of on the same thing, but how do I remove my upline from my sales and essentially go independent? So obviously whoever asked this is not an independent agent. They either work for their upline as a captive agent or they're in some kind of career model. You'll never remove an upline. You might be able to remove that upline and go independent, but you will always need to have an upline of some sort. And some of that depends on the carriers that you work with. But for the most part, the vast majority of insurance companies that you would want to sell in the Medicare space, and this is not just true in Medicare, this is true in ACA, this is true in life insurance, annuities, etc. Most of them will never allow you to appoint directly with them as an independent agent. They're going to refer you to a broker or an FMO or an MGA or someone that can deliver that contract. Now, that might allow you to be independent if you have an independent contract with that broker. So I'm getting paid directly from the insurance company. I get to operate at my own speed. I get to do my own thing and be independent, but you still have an upline, 100%. It's just a different type of upline. And all of that comes down to the contract that you're signing. I feel like I should, and I've talked about this before, but I feel like I should probably put together like a contract class for some of you guys. Because I still feel to this day that that's probably one of the biggest gaps and problems in our industry is that recruiters, FMOs, brokers, etc., they don't teach agents the nature of the contract between you and the insurance company or you and the FMO broker. I've definitely talked about it before. Maybe I should put together a deeper class for you, but understanding that there are truly independent contracts where you're fully independent. And then there are contracts that are kind of quasi-independent. You're independent as long as you keep your contracts with us. And then there's fully captive and career agent type contracts. And being able to identify the difference of those will tell you quickly what kind of channel you're in and what your responsibilities or what your options are. But ultimately, you will never remove your upline 100%. You might remove that upline by changing them and going somewhere else. But for the most part, you can't get appointments direct with the carrier. Obviously, there are exceptions on that. They're very limited, extremely limited. Like you can go get a direct contract with Blue Cross. Actually, no, you can't even do that. They'll pretend, and this is one of the things that probably shouldn't say this too. Well, it doesn't matter. I don't sell anything for them anyway. One of the things that pissed me off about Blue Cross is I went direct thinking I was getting a direct contract, and I went through them, contracted through them. The entire process was directly with Blue Cross, and then I find out I'm with a different FMO that they had just shuffled my contract over to them. Someone I have no relationship with, don't know anything about, doesn't help me, doesn't provide anything for me. They do absolutely nothing for me. And they're getting overrides on my FMO or on my Blue Cross business. But I don't really like Blue Cross because, well, they don't even pay commissions on their Medicare Advantage plans in Texas. So why would I sell them? Anyway, there you go. You'll never remove your upline. You'll always have someone. Choosing the right mentor goes back to this previous question. Right? Don't look for the best FMO. Look for the best FMO yourself. What do you need that you can't provide for yourself to accomplish your goals in this business? And then find the FMO that can deliver that for you. That's Tuesday training. Thank you all for tuning in. Have a wonderful week. We will see you next Tuesday.